I didn't plan to open the reading this way. I had something else prepared, a different entry point, a different opening image. And then I sat with, your energy really sat with it the way I do when something is trying to come through clearly and everything I had planned dissolved. Because what replaced it was stronger, more specific, more urgent in that quiet way that certain energies are urgent, not loud, but insistent, like a hand on your shoulder that won't let you walk past without stopping. And what that hand was pointing at was you, and something that is turning. Virgo, I need you to understand something before we go any further into this reading. What I'm feeling around you right now is not the energy of something you made happen. It's not the result of a strategy or a conversation or a decision you made consciously. What's moving in your favor right now, what's shifting in your direction with this person, is happening in a way that you did not engineer, could not have engineered, because it's coming from their side, from something that moved inside them without your direct involvement, without your prompting, without you having to do anything at all except continue to be exactly who you are. And who you are turned out to be exactly enough, more than enough. Let me stay here for a moment because I think this is important. There is a particular kind of good news that hits differently than the kind you work toward. The kind you hustled for, advocated for, made happen through sheer force of will and effort. That kind of good news is deeply satisfying. You earned it. You know you earned it. It lands with the clean feeling of a closed loop. But then there's this other kind, the unexpected kind, the kind that arrives not because you pushed, but because the universe or life or timing or whatever language feels true to you simply turned in your direction. The kind that finds you when you had stopped looking quite so hard. The kind that shows up and reminds you that not everything good has to be forced into existence. Some things simply become ready. Some doors simply swing open. Some people simply arrive at a realization about you that changes everything, and they arrive there on their own through their own internal journey on a timeline that had nothing to do with your efforts and everything to do with who you are. This is that kind of good news, and it is coming for you now. I want to talk about where this person has been, because to understand why this turn feels so significant, you have to understand what was happening on their end before it happened. What I keep sensing is someone who went through a period, a recent period, and for some of you, not so recent, but still present in the energy of resistance. Not resistance to you necessarily, though that was part of it. Resistance to what they were feeling. Resistance to the inconvenient, poorly timed, doesn't fit neatly into my life truth of how deeply you had gotten to them. This person had reasons, real reasons, not just excuses for why this wasn't the right moment, why they couldn't go there, why they needed to hold back, stay measured, maintain a certain distance that felt safe even when it felt wrong. And they held that position outwardly, convincingly enough that you may have started to believe it, started to adjust your own expectations accordingly, started to quietly fold the hope you had for this connection into something smaller, something more manageable, something that didn't leave you quite so exposed. You were protecting yourself, understandably, wisely, even. But here's what was happening behind that distance that you couldn't see. They were losing the argument with themselves. What continues to come through so clearly is this image of someone who has been having an internal debate, a real, sustained, emotionally exhausting debate about you, about what you mean to them, about what they want, about whether the reasons they were holding back were actually solid or whether they were just fear wearing the costume of logic. And that debate, the one they've been having in the quiet of their own mind, in the moments between everything else, in the spaces they can't fill with distraction, that debate has recently reached a conclusion, and the conclusion is you. The conclusion is toward you. The energy strongly suggests that something specific happened, a moment, an experience, a realization that tipped the internal scales definitively in your direction. For some Virgos, this was something they witnessed or heard about you secondhand, something that came back to them through the network of connection that surrounds both of you, a comment someone made, a story someone told, something about how other people see you that made this person suddenly and sharply aware of what they have in front of them and what they risk by continuing to hesitate. For others, the tipping point was internal and solitary, a quiet moment where they finally stopped negotiating with themselves and just felt the truth of what is. The truth being, they don't want to be without you. They don't want to watch your life from a distance anymore. They don't want to keep having the version of you that exists behind appropriate boundaries when what they actually want is the whole of you. That wanting finally fully acknowledged is what's creating the shift you're about to experience. I keep sensing a very particular quality of energy around this person right now that I want to try to describe accurately because I think you'll recognize it when you see it. There's a softness to them that wasn't there before or wasn't visible before, like something that was held rigid has begun to relax, like the careful management of how they present themselves to you, the measured responses, the strategic distance, the way they used to choose words with a certain calculated quality has started to give way to something more natural, more direct, more them. You may have already noticed a small shift in how they communicate with you, something slightly warmer, something slightly less guarded, a response that came faster than usual, a message that felt different in its tone, less performative, more present. A moment in conversation where they said something that surprised you with its honesty and then maybe even seemed slightly surprised themselves that they said it. That's the turn beginning. You may have already felt the first degree of it. What's coming is the full rotation. There is a powerful feeling that this person is moving toward a gesture, something they do or say that makes the shift visible. Not just something you sense in the energy, but something you can point to and say that changed. For some Virgos, this is a direct conversation, a declaration, a moment where they finally name what has been unnamed between you. For others, it's an action, something they do that demonstrates a shift in how they're approaching you, a step toward greater closeness, a removal of a barrier that has been sitting between you. Whatever form it takes, and it will take a form that makes sense in the specific context of your connection with this person, it is going to feel like an exhale, like the resolution of a tension that has been sitting in the atmosphere between you for longer than either of you would probably officially admit. Let me sit with something that I think deserves its own moment, because I want to talk about the word unexpected in the title of this reading. And I want to talk about why unexpected is actually the most important word in there. more important than favor, more important than turn, more important than even the word things, unexpected. Virgo, I keep sensing that you had begun quietly, sensibly, in the practical way you handle disappointment to adjust your expectations around this person. To file certain hopes in the category of probably not going to happen, to start the internal process of making peace with a version of this situation that doesn't include what you actually wanted. You are very good at that, at making peace, at being reasonable in the face of emotional evidence, at finding a way to be okay even when okay is not what you actually wanted. You had started to be okay, and then this happens. And it happens now after the adjusting, after the quiet letting go, after you stopped holding the door open quite so hard, because that is genuinely often how the universe works. Not as a cruel joke, but as a kind of confirmation. Because when you stopped holding the door open from a place of anxiety and need, the energy around the situation changed. When you began to move toward genuine peace rather than performed peace, something relaxed in the dynamic. And sometimes what needs to happen for someone to move toward you is for the pressure to ease, for the wanting to become less desperate, less visible, less energetically demanding. Your peace, your genuine, hard won, this is real peace, created space for them to move. And they are moving. I want to be honest with you about something, though, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort. And I think in the end, honesty is more comforting anyway. This turn in your favor does not mean that everything becomes instantly simple. I'm not sensing a story where this person does a complete 180 overnight and suddenly has everything figured out and comes to you with zero complications. What I'm sensing is movement, real, meaningful, undeniable movement, but movement that will still require something from you, not effort in the exhausting sense. Not the kind of effort where you're doing all the emotional labor again, but presence, patience of the healthy kind. Not the kind where you're waiting indefinitely for someone who never arrives, but the kind where you can see someone moving toward you and you give them the space to complete the journey. They are completing the journey. What continues to come through is this sense of a conversation that is going to happen between you, a real one, the kind that actually addresses what's between you rather than dancing around it, and the quality of that conversation feels genuinely different from conversations you've had with this person before. More honest, more mutual, more two people actually saying what they mean rather than what feels safe to say. In that conversation, there will be things said that reframe your history with this person, things that explain moments you found confusing, things that make a certain kind of retroactive sense. Oh, so that's why they did that. Oh, so that moment I misread actually meant something closer to what I initially felt before I talked myself out of it. Your instincts about this person were more accurate than your analysis. Your feelings were reading the situation correctly all along. The energy strongly suggests that what turns in your favor is not just this person's behavior toward you, but the full understanding of what this connection actually is. And what it is, what it has been underneath all the complexity and timing and resistance is something real, something that has roots, something that didn't just appear recently but has been growing quietly in the background of however long you've known each other, building a foundation that neither of you fully acknowledged out loud, but both of you felt in your own way. That foundation is what this turn is built on. It doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from something genuine that existed between you. And that genuineness, that Realness underneath all the complicated surface is exactly what makes this feel different from a temporary shift. This doesn't feel like a moment that reverses again in 2 weeks. This feels like a recalibration, a settling into something more honest, more solid, more actually where both of you are, rather than the careful performance of not being there. Mm. I want to speak to something psychological now because I think it lives underneath everything I've been saying. Virgo, one of the most quietly painful experiences in love is feeling something real for someone and having no external confirmation that the feeling is shared. It puts you in this impossible epistemic position where you're trying to make decisions about something you genuinely cannot see clearly. You feel it, but feeling it alone doesn't tell you what to do with it. Feeling it alone doesn't tell you whether to move forward or let go. Feeling it alone is, and I want to use this word carefully because I mean it specifically, lonely. You have been lonely in this feeling. Not lonely in your whole life necessarily, I'm not saying that, but lonely in this particular feeling, carrying something real without being able to put it down or share it or know what to do with it because the person on the other end of it has been keeping their cards close enough that you couldn't read the hand. That loneliness is about to end because when someone finally turns toward you, when they close the distance they've been maintaining and come fully into the space you share, you are no longer alone in the feeling. They are there with you in it. And that shift from alone in the feeling to together in the feeling is, I don't have a more precise word for this enormous. Even if nothing on the outside of your life changes dramatically, even if it looks exactly the same to someone watching from a distance, inside, everything is different. Inside, you are no longer carrying this alone. You are not going to be carrying this alone much longer. I keep sensing your energy this week as having a particular kind of glow to it that comes from being in the process of something hopeful materializing, not the anxious glow of hoping, the warmer, quieter glow of something actually arriving, like the light that comes just before sunrise, not the sun yet, but the undeniable sense that the sun is coming and the dark is ending and soon everything is going to be illuminated. That light is on you right now, Virgo, and this person can see it. That might actually be part of what's moving them. The particular quality of energy you're carrying right now, this combination of groundedness and openness, of having released the desperate grip on outcome while still being genuinely available, of being fully yourself without apology, that energy is magnetic in a way you may not fully feel from the inside. From the outside, from where this person is standing, you are radiant with it. And they are drawn. It would not surprise me at all if the first sign of this turn feels almost too small to trust, a message that's a little softer than usual, a response that comes with more warmth than their recent pattern, an initiation on their part, them reaching out first, them suggesting something, them creating an opportunity for connection that they have not been creating lately, something that makes you look at your phone and think HM, something you notice but don't want to overinterpret because you've been burned before by overinterpreting small things from this person. Don't talk yourself out of what you notice. Not this time, because this time the small thing is the beginning of the big thing. This time, the warm message is the first ripple of a wave that's been building offshore for weeks. This time, what looks small on the surface is carrying the full weight of an internal shift that you are only just beginning to see the external evidence of. Trust what you notice. Trust what you feel in your body when their name appears. Trust the instinct that says something is different now because something is There is a powerful feeling that this connection, if you allow it to develop from this turning point, if you meet this person in the space they are moving into, has the capacity to become something that genuinely nourishes you. Not just excites you, not just interests you, but genuinely adds to the quality of your life in a sustained way. The kind of relationship that gives you energy rather than depleting it. The kind of connection where you feel more like yourself rather than less. And Virgo, you know the difference. You have been in connections that cost more than they gave, that left you more drained than filled, that required constant emotional labor and never quite achieved real equilibrium. You know what that feels like from the inside. You know the particular tiredness of trying to make something work that fundamentally isn't working. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like something that has the capacity to actually work, to actually fit, to actually be the kind of love that doesn't require you to shrink or perform or manage yourself carefully around another person. The kind where you can simply be completely, specifically, sometimes too much, but also just right you, and have that be exactly what is wanted. Everything points toward that being available to you now through this person, through this turn. Through this unexpected, unengineered, quietly miraculous shift in the direction of something you had begun just barely, just quietly to stop fully believing in. Believe in it again. It earned that belief. Let me close here with something I want you to carry out of this reading and into your week. You did not do anything wrong in this situation. The confusion, the uncertainty, the moments where you second guessed yourself or wondered if you were imagining things or asked yourself why someone who seemed to care kept creating distance, none of that was a failure of your perception or your worth. It was the natural result of being in an unresolved situation with another person who was themselves unresolved. They are resolving. And as they resolve, as they move toward the clarity that is bringing them toward you, I want you to meet that movement with the full, quiet, dignified openness of someone who knows their own value. Not eagerly, not desperately, not with any trace of the relief that comes from finally being chosen after feeling unchosen, but with the grounded calm of someone who always knew they were worth choosing and is simply pleased that this particular person has arrived at the same conclusion. Receive this turn with grace, Virgo. Receive it with open hands and a full heart, and the complete settled understanding that you did not get lucky here. You did not somehow convince someone to care about you. You simply continued to be yourself, real and deep and specific and extraordinary in the particular way that you are extraordinary. And someone in your world finally stopped resisting what that does to them. That is not luck, that is you. It was always you. Come back and tell me what happened. Leave a comment, even just a few words, even just the sign and a heart, even just Virgo and yes, because I want to know. I want to know when the turn becomes visible. I want to celebrate this with you because this community is built for exactly these moments. Subscribe if you're not already here. Come back every week. Your story is unfolding in real time, and I want to be here for every chapter of it. Go receive your turn, Virgo. It's already in motion.